Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Monday. I'm working on this foot piece again. It's good to be back on a Monday. Glad you all have found me. And that you all are chatting amongst each other. I think it's great. I actually meant to have this foot done by this morning, but didn't quite make it. This is 16 API, and I will admit it's a challenge for my vision. I need some new glasses. But I'm going to soldier on without putting readers on. Okay, so let's see how y'all did this weekend. Not really sure what weekends are anymore. But here we are again. Let's do this. And so when you all are able to jump on early, so when I go live, I get like a flood of comments, which is kind of fun to see where everybody's coming in from, and all over the world again: Washington, Massachusetts, New Brunswick, Kansas, bunch of people from everywhere, South Carolina, California, Sweden, Santa Fe. It is sunny here again, finally. It snowed a bunch last week, and today we're back to sun. I think it's supposed to be in the 50s today and in the 70s by the end of the week, so I'm kind of excited about that. Helen, you're in the right place. Helen from the UK, Wisconsin, Maryland, Michigan, Vancouver, Edinburgh. I actually really love that y'all have made friends through the networks from the online classes. I think it's really wonderful. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to help out. Let's see. Michelle, it is currently 10:34 Mountain Time, so it should be 9:34 in California. I think it's your laptop. Isn't that weird how we all, time is just different? Hi, Lee from London and Nebraska. And Dana, yay, I'm glad you finished part 1 of Warp and Weft. Hello from New Mexico. Great. Maine. Someone figure out that John Brennan thing. I have been reposting his things, but I can't remember the handle. Someone will find it. Or I'll try to put some more in my stories today on Instagram, and you can look there and figure out. Cool, Mandy. She's working on the fringeless class. Oh, I think Angie might be right. John Brennan Tapestry. Awesome. That's on Instagram. Thanks, you guys. I knew you'd figure that out. So before I forget, I just wanted to mention that I added a section, that page on my website that's under online learning that says Change the Shed. It's like the second thing down if you go to the online learning and navigation, the Change the Shed page. I've added some links there. If there are things that people are asking over and over, or just things that you want to find, I'll try to post links on that page. So if there's something that you're not finding and it's not in the chat or something, go and look on that website and you may see it there. I also have links to every one of the replays. If YouTube drives you crazy and you can't find the playlist or something, they're all linked on that page. So it makes it easy to find them if you just feel like watching some old episodes. The other thing I have on my little note sheet here is that Weaver's Loft still has Hoket shed sticks. So y'all were asking about these. I suspect they don't have any of the holly ones. That's what this white one is. But Weaver's Loft, run by the fabulous Barbara, apparently still has shed sticks. And Weaving Rainbow, of course, carries lots of other kinds of shed sticks like this one. So there's lots of people who make great shed sticks. But I wanted to mention that there are a few Hoket ones left at the Weaver's Loft. Okay, so cool, Lee. I'm glad you also were doing the fringeless class. I love the fringeless class. It's because it's the first class I did as a collaboration with Sarah Sweat, and she's amazing. The class is just worth watching, even if you never want to do a fringeless tapestry, because Sarah's so amazing. She gives you so many tips. Okay, so Janice, I'll just say that she says she's waiting for her fly line backing to arrive for another 2 weeks. You can actually use cotton seam twine for your supplemental warp, Janice. So if you don't want to wait, just use the same warp that you're using for the tapestry warp. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so this little guy, here, I'll show you. I actually, oops, I'm screwing that up. There we go. This little tapestry, I wish I could move that over a little more, but I can't. This tapestry was the one that I was going to do for renditions, and obviously didn't finish it in time. And I wanted to have this foot all finished this weekend, and actually wanted to get up to the butterfly, but I didn't make it. And so one of the reasons I didn't make it is because I was playing with the colors. So originally I wanted to do this foot with rainbow colors, just because you know how skin tones are, like, I don't want to pick there's a huge range of skin tones, and I was like, well, I just want it to be like a universal thing, and so I'm going to do like colored stripes or something in the foot. So I started with these pastel colors, and I was going to do like greens and whatever in this foot part, and I hated it. I thought it just looked really not so great. So I tore that all out, and I went with this Weaver's Bazaar color, which is called Oatmeal. I was trying to go for something middle of the road, but anyway, that's just to say that sometimes or often I try something and I don't like it and I take it out. So this is just going to be woven just a flat color all the way up to here. And then I got to do these little toes in there. So that should be an interesting challenge. Here's the cartoon. So each of those little toes, I'm probably going to try to outline the ones that are more vertical. I don't know about this one, so we'll see how that goes. And then here I'm back to another eccentric outline. I think it's been a month or two, or a week or two, a month, a week, whatever. It's been a little while since I showed you all this piece because I haven't worked on it. So those of you who have not seen it before, it is 2 sets. So it's warped at 8 ends per inch with 2 warps. And in these areas, I'm doing a finer set at 16 ends per inch by splitting those warps. Which is actually really fun. I've only done a couple other pieces this way, and I have really enjoyed messing around with this concept. Okay, so I want an outline here. I have a shedding issue, which I'm going to fix by going back here. And then sometimes tails are super handy using this tail. So I just used the half of that other piece of yarn to shift the shed, and now I'm going to use that as the outline. So this is the eccentric outline, which is all in the same shed. Oh, cool. Yeah, Donald also got, so because Barbara has some of the last of the Hoket stuff at the Weaver's Loft, they also had rag shuttles. So if you all use churro yarn or something, if you're doing rugs or something that uses fatter yarn, I think she still has a few of those Hoket rag shuttles. They're really beautiful. Nancy, yes, is asking about hills and valleys. Okay, yeah, Joanne, the warp set is, so on this, it's warped at 8 ends per inch. So there are 2 warps in each coil on this Mirex, treated as 1 warp. And there are, let's see if I can. You can't see that. And I don't want to mess up the camera because it's hard to get back. But the shedding device up here has these 2 warps are treated as 1 warp in the heddles. And then the 16 EPI, if I were to use 2 shedding devices, I could have heddles on this too. Actually, that would be smart. I may do that the next time I do a piece like this. I may put 2 shedding devices on, which means that one shedding device would be heddled, just like shafts on a floor loom would be heddled for 8 ends per inch, and the other one would have a heddle on every warp at 16. So Joanne's question was, what is the set? And this is 8, and this is 16. Okay, cool. So I'm not going to go into too much depth on the hills and valleys, Nancy. I talked about it a little bit earlier. There's stuff in the Warp and Weft class about it, and there is I just did a review of hill and valley threads in the design class, which is maybe the best video I've done about it. So basically it's just that if you create a valley thread, which is what this is, a valley thread goes over the top and around the back, and that packs down more. So you want your valley threads on the underside of hills or angles because they pack down and make a straighter line. And a hill thread is the opposite. It goes like this is a hill thread. Oh, you can't see that. Hold on. Let's see if I can rotate this. Okay, here's a hill thread. So it goes under first and over. And the valley thread went over first and under. And I will, and like I said, I talk about that a lot in a couple of the online classes. So here, I want to do another one of those silk outlines. And I'm going to use these two colors for this one. This is the, so I have the Weaver's Bazaar Rainbow Silk collection thing, and these are two of the colors that come in it. This is like it's verging on pink, and this is their sort of cherry red. And I'm using, I think I've been using 4 strands of this silk at a time. I could use more. It's fairly thin, but so I want to do a split weft outline. So I'm going to put the first one in the same shed. And then that thing about getting the weft in there nice and even with enough weft so that it has room to go over and under all the little things, all the warps. I might go over one more here. I don't like how there's a relay right there, so I'm going to go over one more to kind of close that up. Tony, that's a good question. Tony asks why use 2 sets. Because I want it, there's a couple of reasons. One is there's a big texture difference, which you can see clearly between the 8 EPI and the 16. And I wanted to play with that. I wanted the difference in look of the fabric. I wanted this part to stand out as being different. And the other reason is that you can get much more detail, of course, at 16 EPI than 8 EPI. And I wanted to put in some flowers and other things in this section that I wouldn't have been able to weave that clearly at 8 EPI. So that gives me more detail in some of the piece. It gives me a texture difference, and it means that the piece weaves a lot faster. If I wove, this is a 10-inch square piece. If I wove the whole thing at 16 EPI, I would never finish it. It just wouldn't. For me, it would never happen. Like this 16 EPI is a set that is at the edge of my tolerance range. It is really, it takes a long time. I am happy to weave at smaller sets on small pieces, but I don't have a lot of tolerance for it in a larger piece. So there is also that time thing. So all of those reasons. We'll just say that the primary, though, is that it served my design idea. So in general, I think that you learn to use the techniques and materials and equipment that serve the idea that you want to create in your piece. At least I think that that is an important, probably it should be the most important consideration, unless you're a process weaver who doesn't actually care about the finished piece and you just are interested in the time you spend weaving, which is also fine. But for me, using the 2 sets served the idea of this piece for me. It was the best way to realize it. Okay, if that makes sense. Let's see. Let's do... So this is a split weft again. Sometimes I'll do stuff like this, like I'm just going to bring this back in the other shed so that the tail isn't on the edge. Although I may change my mind when I look at what shed I'm in. That would be the other consideration here. So these are in separate sheds. So this butterfly is going this way in this shed, and this butterfly I need to go this way. But that is all in one shed. So I have now made myself put a tail at the edge, but at least I don't have that extra tail. I would have had to do a piece of crepeau in there somewhere anyway. So here's my new color, new butterfly, same color. So I could actually, oh, here's a good way to solve this. Instead of starting this at the edge, is that going to work? It won't work, because then my, if I don't start it at the edge and come down the side, the sheds will be wrong on this part, and I'll still have to use, I'll still have to do something to change the shed. So there's a whole video in Warp and Weft about what to do when your butterflies are going in the wrong direction. Sorry, Jessica, I don't actually know what you guys are talking about in terms of whorls, so I can't answer that question. Do I think the bead on a double warp is sometimes nicer than a single? So that's a great observation, Stephanie. The bead on the tapestry depends a lot on the size of the warp. So definitely, because my warps are, I would never use a warp this thin at 8 dpi. This is 26, and I would never use that at 8 dpi. So this is, I've used a thinner warp on purpose because I knew it was doubled there. But for example, if I often use 12.6 or 12.9, which is still fairly thin at 8 EPI, if you want the bead, which is how fat these warp ribs are, instead of being, mine are fairly flat. There's not a lot of definition in each rib. But if you go and look at tapestries, Tommy Scanlon's a good example. She weaves on 12.12, sometimes 12.15, or even 12.18 warps, which those bigger sizes I think she uses at 6 ends per inch. But I'm pretty sure she uses 12.12 at 8 ends per inch. And the bead in her tapestry is much more pronounced than mine. So the weft has to go over and under. The warps are fatter, so there's more of a distance for the, so like if here's a warp thread cross section, it has to go farther. The weft has to go farther to get around each of the warps when you use a fatter warp. So it takes more weft, but yes, it makes the bead more prominent. So whether it's nicer or not is up to you to decide. That's an aesthetic choice. My tapestries are super flat. I like them to be super flat. You almost can't, if you looked at some of my big works, you almost can't see where the warp where the warp channels are. Other people really love that, and they accentuate it by using a fatter warp. So I will argue that that is a subjective thing. So you can see here that this is not even. And I get this a lot because I teach line by line to start with in your weaving, because I think it's easier to understand the concepts. But sometimes people, they feel like they always have to weave line by line. I'm going to fill that in because it's low. You can do that. You can fill in low areas. It's not cheating. Yarn diameters vary. Some yarns are, even in the same kind of yarn. Like if you use Harrisville Highland, for example, some of the colors you'll get might feel like they're thinner than others. Sometimes it has to do with how much dye is on the yarn. I find that very light colored yarns that are commercially dyed even tend to be thinner. The dye actually makes the yarn feel thicker. So then I'm back to filling this in, and then I run into the problem of the toe. So everything is inner. I would love to be able to just weave this whole part and finish it, but I can't because everything's all interlaced. I wanted to put, I'm just going to mention this because that looks so funny. I wanted to put toenail polish on the toes. And I thought that purple was going to be a great choice. And I think it looks horrible, which reminds me of when I see people with, black toenail polish on. I always think that they've hurt themselves. So I probably will change this color for something lighter. I might try the pink, or I don't have a lot of colors of silk. So I might go with something that isn't in the silk. So I will change that, but that means I actually have to make that decision because I have one warp hanging out here that I can't fill in until I have changed that color. So that is how all the things interact. Yes, Ruth, that cotton seam twine warp comes in all kinds of sizes. So. Oh, that's a great question, Dorothy. Dorothy's asking about this. So let me back out a little bit. I think it's Dorothy. Sorry if it's not Dorothy. It's D. D something. This is actually a little curtain, and it is made for this size Murex. It's made by... the lady who makes the Murex bags. God, I'm going to blank on her name. I'm really sorry. She has an Etsy shop. And so it's a curtain that's white on one side and black on the other. And you could easily make one of these also. And it just has ties on the corners. And it fits between the two layers of warp. And so you block the second layer so you can see what you're doing, which is really important. I often use just a card, a piece of construction paper or something. I actually like gray behind here, but the black works fine too, especially with the white warps. That's a great question. Dory, you're going to have as many tapestry looms as other looms. Sorry, Dory. It's okay. Give them away if you have ones you never use. Yeah, I don't know. Is it this beater you're asking about? Hold on. I got too many cameras. This is from Threads Through Time on Etsy. I'm not sure if this is the one you're asking about or this one. This is the magpie beater that is 1 inch wide. I don't know what it's called. Oh, that's a fabulous question, Kathy. How do you manage meet and separate when you're weaving with two sets in one piece? That's a fantastic question. And the answer is that you fudge. You actually, let's see if I can show you an example. So here at the edge of these two is what she's asking, what do you do here? So I'm making sure my meet and separate in these two sections is working. And of course, in this section, it's working. But of course, there are many more passes in the 16 EPI section than the 8 EPI section. And I'm splitting these warps. So occasionally, like here, you can't see it, but there's a green relay that went over just one of these warps. So my camera doesn't like it when I do that. I'm fudging, basically. So this fatter, much fatter weft will cover up many sins right at the edge. So I'm just keeping each of the sections in meet and separate and then relying on this fatter, fuzzier yarn to cover up any little blips. And the 16 EPI is so tiny that you can't see the edges where it's not quite perfect. So you could make it so that you made sure, oh, I need 4 sequences of the thin yarn against one of the fat yarn. And you could make sure that they lined up. But I find that the fuzzy yarn completely covers the sins of the making the two things match, if that makes any sense. Yeah, that's a great question. Pinky red silk. I love that Weaver's Bazaar silk. It is really pretty. Barb, that's a good question too. Do you weave line by line on the, I was talking about weaving line by line in a lot of my courses, and starting with that for beginners because I feel like it's easier to learn meet and separate and hatching if you learn weaving line by line. Actually angles too, but on the big loom, I'm using the beater on the loom. And another reason that I weave a lot line by line is because I love using the beater on the floor loom, and which is the loom that is, sorry, cameras are backwards. It's that loom behind me. Can you see it? It's behind the camera. That Harrisville rug loom. I use the beater on the loom because I want the fabric to be very even and it makes my salvages perfectly straight. The beater allows me to see on every single pick whether I'm pulling in or drying out, which is how you get a monster straight salvage. Not that that's necessarily everybody's goal, but I like it, and I like that the fabric is really even. So I weave line by line as much as I can, but it depends on the design. A lot of designs, like the Lifelines piece I did, had some examples. Lots and lots of pieces that I want an eccentric outline. You just weave that with a hand beater, and then I fill in again to a point where I can use the beater on the loom. So often the fell line is not even, but I go back to making it even as often as I can, just so I can get the advantage of using the beater on the floor loom. If I'm going to use this amazing tool that has great tension, amazingly perfect tension, and I have the ability to make a tapestry that is super flat with very straight salvages, it's a nice challenge. I like it. It's not for everybody though. Jessica, are you asking about Sarah's son who makes the Hepty spindle? It's Hepty. Sarah Sweat, I think that they've been asking about the Hepty and they want to know if Henry is still making those at all. Please no swearing, Corey. I would appreciate it if yeah, I'm sorry, you guys. I we'll need to look into how to block people on this broadcast, because that is not cool, and I apologize. Let me just write that down. I will have my yeah, and I actually don't know how to fix that. So good thing we are at our half hour, and I will figure out how to quickly block people by next time tomorrow. We do have someone who is spamming us, and I am really sorry. And I don't know if that is through, it's got to be through the YouTube chat. So I'll figure out on YouTube how to block that, and we will see if I can keep that from happening again. Thank you, Nan. I appreciate that. Susan, great question. She's asking if, I'll show you one last thing because I can't bear not to. Susan is asking if this line right here is actually fatter. It's actually the same. I put the same number of picks in as these other lines, but it will pack down a little bit more as I go. That's why that looks like that. Oh, thank you, Missy. I will have to, so I don't have YouTube up. I have a different program that I'm interfacing with, but I can make it so that I do have access to that. Or, yes, thank you guys. You're the best. You guys are great. I will be here tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. Because I believe that we are continuing our stay-at-home order, and it's been a lot of fun to come and say hello every day. So I hope you're well. Keep weaving, and I'm trying to think of what day it is. Yeah, Colorado's stay-at-home order goes through this week, and I think that our county will extend it even longer. So that is just how it is these days. And so keep weaving. And I have new projects in the works. And I will see you tomorrow, Tuesday. That's as good as I get is what day of the week it is. So thanks you all. Thank you so much for all your help with the YouTube troll. I apologize for that, and now I think we know how to fix it quickly. So in future, I will make sure that I have quick access to blocking any such things. Y'all are great. It's been really fun to say hello. I hope you had a good weekend. And I will see you tomorrow. Have a good night, day, whatever.